Hello. When we last left the 1550 diesel, it was still missing. And I did a little more investigating, cracked open injector lines while it was running. Still seems to be number 6. That doesn't make much difference. So that tells me something in there. And then I did this. I cranked it over with the fuel stop out so it wouldn't start. You hear that where it kind of speeds up every now and then. My guess is there's a valve sticking, causing low compression, which would cause it to miss, especially at higher RPMs. Explain a lot, and so I'm going to start tearing into it and see if I can pull the valve cover off and see what's going on in there. All right, I'm ready to pop that valve cover off. Got the nuts off the top. And before I do, I'm going to make my prediction that I have a bent push rod on the intake on number 6, and that's keeping it from opening maybe at all. Ooh, look, it's loose already. Well, that was easy enough. All right, moment of truth. Yep, looks like I was off. Wow. Let's go look, but yep, exhaust for number 6 was yeah, it's stuck. At least it don't look like it bent the push rod. To see if I can't get her freed up. Yep, that would definitely be exhaust. Well, I was close. Now I want to show you something else. Set this valve cover down. Surprised it ain't leaking more. Cracks right along there. And that just comes from guys that don't know when to stop. Oh, I guess they knew about it because look. I can make it out through the grease. There's silicone along the crack. I'll be able to see it better when I get it washed up. But they don't know their own strength. They just keep tightening, and the cast iron cover cracks. Oliver kept going back and forth. They started out with pressed steel, and guys would over-tighten them and deform them, and they'd leak, and they just keep tightening them more. So they thought cast iron, it's solid, it's not flexible. It would provide a more even seal. Well, if some is better, more is even better yet. And they'd over tighten them and crack them, so guess I'll have to get her cleaned up and see if I can't. I guess I'll probably just re-silicone it, or if his silicone's still holding, I might leave it that way. Yeah, I should have been recording. I took the pry bar around the other side and popped the cap, just bumped it a little bit, and she popped right back up. Wondered if it'll stick if I, see, make sure nothing's gonna short out. Put the battery back up and crank it for a moment and see if it sticks again. Bzz. Excuse me. Aw, there. All right. Fuel stops out. Neutral. Let's see what happens. It's kind of farther than it. Push rod spins like it's true. Definitely loose, but well, I can add to this video adjusting valves. I'll be doing that. Some seem tight, some seem loose. The way this tractor's been, nothing surprises me. Someone should have had the wrenches taken away. The usual. I guess that could be tight because it's starting to go on the intake stroke. Let's crank her again. Well, now I'm thinking I should fire it up. Let's see, nothing crazy in the way. Still kind of smoky, but there's probably a lot of raw fuel in there that didn't get burned off. That, and even when it was, before this happened, it would smoke when it was cold. First it's been started up. Guess I won't be adjusting the valves tonight. Gotta do that when it's cold. Oh, oil's getting up to the top. Starts to come out there. Gives you an idea how long it takes oil to get all the way up to the valve. There. Looks like it's getting oil now. Hopefully we're able to hear that. Call me saying that the oil got to the top. How long it takes to get up there? That it got that far down. It doesn't get compressed that far. I wonder if a backfire caused that valve to open up a little farther than normal, and that's what made it stick. And it's a diesel. Doesn't seem like it should be backfiring, but as hot. Exhaust is getting cleared up. Well, I guess I'll to let it cool off now. Guess that'll probably be tomorrow's project. I don't know if it warmed up that much, but readjust the valves and yeah, see, it's loose now. Must have been going on intake then. Now it's going on exhaust. Readjust them, put the valve cover on, seal it up, and see how she runs. Well, it's tomorrow. I washed this valve cover off last night so it could dry overnight, and as you can see, I was right. There was someone siliconed the crack, but looks like it's doing the job, and so for now I guess I'm going to leave that alone. We'll get over here and adjust these valves. Got to grab a couple of wrenches, go through the procedure for that, look up the specs, and then we'll put the cover back on and get her running. Not sure we'll take it out and do much today because, hey, guess what? It's raining again. The tools to do this is pretty simple, nothing special. I do have this special tool, but it can be done with a screwdriver and an end wrench or a socket. This one kind of essentially has a screwdriver blade built right in. Put a socket on it and makes it a lot easier. But if you're going to use a screwdriver, you just put your wrench on the nut, break that loose, and then adjust with the screwdriver instead of that tool. And then let's see, I got my feeler gauges, and here's the specs. Valve clearance for 1550. Come on, focus. Intake 9 to 11, we'll call that 10 thousandths, and 19 to 20 on exhaust for diesel, call that 20 thousandths. I've got a 1/2 inch drive ratchet with an 1 1/8 socket on the front crankshaft bolt, so I can turn it. And then firing order is 153624. Every straight six I've ever seen is that way, with one being the front. So what I do is I turn. I want the piston I'm doing at top dead center, so I'm watching for one that is switching from exhaust to intake. And I think number 6 is about to do, nope, exhaust is opening on that one. Let's see. I'm turning it. I'm pulling my ratchet up here on the alternator side. Normal direction of turning. Let's see. Number 2's exhaust is starting to open. Number 3 intake starting to open. So I probably just missed 3. So 153. Six. Okay, yeah. So number 6 is coming up, and when I see that, might be hard to see on the video, but number 1, or the intake for number 6 started going down. That means we're pretty much at top dead center for both 6 and 1. But there's some overlap on valves on that, so you don't want to do it at top dead center intake. You want to do it top dead center compression, which number 1 is on. So now we'll get my tool in there, or my feeler gauges. Anybody remember what I said? 10 thousandths for intake. There's 11, 10. And the valve is going to be whatever. On these diesels, they share an intake port. So it's exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust. So let's see, this one's the intake. Oh yeah, that's way loose. Should just feel a little bit of drag going through there. Man, that's got lots of room. slot, break the jam, and then I just turn this top nut until I can feel some drag on my feeler gauge. You don't want it tight, but you want just a little bit of drag. Then usually when you jam the jam nut back down, oh, see, that's tight, I can't move it. It's a little too much. It's still pretty tight. All right. You want to try to hold the top part stationary while you tighten the jam nut back down. Because as the jam nut draws down, it pulls the stud up, and that can throw your adjustment off some. See, yep, it's just a skosh loose there. Not too bad. Slight amount of dragging there. I think we'll call that good. And then what did I say? 20 thousandths on intake. Sorry, I mean 20 thousandths on exhaust. Check the exhaust port. That's just a little loose. So the same thing. Put this on here. Give that just a little turn. Too tight. It's just a little loose. I will make this whole thing turn when I tighten it down, and that come out pretty good. Just a skosh tight, but you know, they've got a 3 thousandths range between 19 and 21, so at 20 being just a skosh tight, probably about the equivalent of 21. Good enough. I like that. Excuse me. Okay, so I did number 1. So 1, 5. So number 5 will be next. So I watched number 2. I can feel something building compression. That's good. Yeah, number 2 just started going into intake because it's the valve closest to the intake manifold. So that means number 5 is top dead center compression. So I can adjust that one. And I'll do the rest two-handed, but you get the idea. Then we'll go on 1, 5, 3. So I'd watch number 4 here to switch from exhaust to intake. Do number 3. Then I'd watch number 1 to go from exhaust to intake, or exhaust to intake. Set number 6. Then watch number 5 go from exhaust to intake. Set number 2. Watch number 3 to go from exhaust to intake. Set number 4, and then you're all done. So we'll be back in a moment. You might ask yourself, why would I even need to adjust my valves? There's a couple of things that go on. The valves can wear up into the head, and that makes things too tight. And then a valve doesn't fully close because just everything's tight. You lose your compression because that valve ain't sealing. The other thing that happens is the lobes on the cam wear, other parts up in here wear, and you get looser, which tends to be what you'll find is that the gap's larger than it should be. And so that kind of, your valve doesn't open as far, and also throws the timing off as to when that valve opens. Now it's a fraction of a second later, but when you're talking an engine turning 2,000 RPMs, that fraction of a second can make a difference in horsepower. You're also getting less volume through, and so more horsepower loss again. And then the other thing is, they start clattering. If they got too much room, they're banging. They got a little room to hammer away, and that causes even more wear. So it's a pretty simple routine maintenance to do. Took me a little over 10 minutes to go through all 6 cylinders and readjust them. And excuse me. And then you might also wonder why a gap, and this is something they figure out when they engineer them, but we all know as metal gets hotter, it expands, and that's why you'll usually see your exhaust valve have a larger gap than the intake valve, because you got the hot exhaust going by it. The valve stem heats up more and expands more, takes up more of that gap. Once the engine's up to operating temperature, those gaps are a lot less than the 10 thousandths or the 20 thousandths that you set them at when it's cold. So if you had them rate at 0 or no gap, once the engine warmed up, your valves would be staying ever so slightly open. You'd lose your compression and your power. So just kind of a easy routine maintenance. Now we'll see about getting that valve cover back on. Gasket came off in good shape. I think I'm going to see if I can't salvage it. Put a little of my aviation forma gasket on that I like to use. A little bit around the bolt holes. That, and I think I'm out of silicone. I'm not a big fan of silicone. It's all right in moderation, but some guys put a bunch on, and if a bunch squeezes to the outside, some squeezing to the inside, and it ends up in your engine. Another thing, don't forget to take the ratchet back off the front of your engine before you fire it up. All right, I'll get my gasket goo and start putting things together. Okay, valve cover's on, hoses, block heater, everything's hooked back up, except for the battery. I'll hook that back up and fire it up and see how it runs. I expect some smoke at first, doing unburnt fuel. Let's see. Neutral. Come on. Well, we'll try the preheater a little. It's not exactly a warm day today. And as you can tell, the tractor ain't exactly new. That made a difference. Getting warmth already on number 6. Not a whole lot on number 1 yet. Makes me wonder if that number 1 injector is still got that staying cold. Warm, 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 cold. Well, these energy cell diesels, another way to tell is to, you can touch them. These energy cells will start heating up before the rest of the engine, because that's where they're essentially part of the combustion chamber. Warm, warm, warm. Not very warm. Warm. I might have to pull that number 6 injector back out. This ain't heating up on number 1 injector. Not heating up on number 1. Still not. I know the valves are working. Smoke and the lack of heat in number 1. I guess I'll pull that one back out and check it again. All right, well, I didn't like the fact that it's a different injector body. You can still see number 2 is different. It seems to be firing good. I'm gonna leave it alone. But number 1, I'd thrown an injector in, or I'm sorry, a nozzle, and maybe that nozzle wasn't compatible with that injector body. Obviously someone swapped stuff. A lot of stuff's been swapped on this poor tractor. But dug into my salvage parts, had some injectors out of an OC6, so I pulled the injector out of here, took the brand new nozzle out of that, put it in this one, got it readjusted. It cracks open at 1750, real nice, real good spray pattern. So I'm hoping this solves that problem. That explains the yellow paint. OC6 was powered by a 77 engine, and the 1550 is essentially a 77 engine, 770. So shouldn't be any problems there. Let's fire it up and see what happens. Neutral. Feel it warming up. Just as warm as number 6. Go around the other side and feel the energy injector, or energy cell. Starting to get hot. I think it's hotter than number 2 already. Well, some weren't still in the engine running it before, but there. Exhaust is starting to clear up. Here I rev it up. That has that cheap Stanley muffler on it. Yeah, it's not as hot as number. It's getting up there. Well, it probably has to burn off that raw fuel that wasn't getting burned before from the injector not opening right. At least we'll hope so. Run it for a little while and see if it clears up. Well, as you can see, it's running a lot clearer now. There's still a little bit of color to the exhaust. It's just about up to temperature. That's kind of the way it was before. It didn't burn 100% clean. Running a lot smoother. I think we're going to call that good for now. I'll run it some on the rake. Give it some time in the field and see if that don't help it out some. But I think mission accomplished. Thanks for watching.